This is Hayden, an OG fan and listener of Scandalwater.
Where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
Woo! We are ready to dive back
We are
into
ready to go.
this fascinating topic. And you know what? You actually set it up really well
Oh, good
last
for me.
time, too. I don't know that you knew what you did, but you did. You were mentioning the podcast. It was a two-parter. You were the one who found it and shared it with me. It was called Becoming You, hosted by Rebecca Cafiero, who is Amanda's friend, who was referenced
Former friend, let's say that.
That's true, yes. She was referenced in our part 1. And on this particular podcast, her guest was CharlieWebster, the creator of the podcast and docuseries Scamanda. Now, just to kind of remind you guys, Rebecca was one of Amanda's most loyal supporters as she was going through her long cancer battle.
Her long fake cancer battle.
Yes.
Fake.
She was supporting Amanda both personally and financially. We
Yeah.
shared in part 1 that Rebecca started giving $500 a month because of Amanda's need for these incredibly expensive meds and treatments. And she shared in this particular podcast that she ended up giving Amanda probably around $20,000 in cash, not including other gifts.
Yes, she
like
was the
airline points.
and she was the professional photographer who took those pictures.
Absolutely. So she invested a lot in Amanda. And she mentioned early in that podcast, as you referenced last time, that she called herself a victim. And then she said, I hate that term victim. And she talked about being embarrassed about having been scammed by Amanda. And so she and Charlie had this nice long conversation. I'm just going to paraphrase. But ultimately, what Charlie told her was that there is no shame or blame, or there should be no shame or blame on the part of a victim because they've done nothing wrong. She said it's the scammer who victimized them.
Right.
And so with that philosophy in mind, one of the things Charlie was determined to do in Scamanda was to share the voices of the victims because she wanted to show how Amanda victimized them, how they were affected, how they were impacted because of what Amanda did to manipulate them.
Yep.
Nothing wrong on their part.
Right.
So before we move back into the timeline of telling what happened with the rest of this case, if you will, I wanted to take a minute to talk about 3 people who were victimized by Amanda. And by the way, I don't know if I said this, but in my mind, part 1 was called Who Was Amanda? And this one is going to be called How Amanda Was Taken Down.
Yes.
Just as a nice little teaser. But back to the point. 3 people who were victimized by Amanda. There were so many, but I chose to focus on 3 people who did speak quite often in Scamanda. One was Mahasti.
Yeah.
I mentioned her last time. She was just such a sweet woman.
She was.
Such a sweet woman. She had run a successful daycare out of her home for years prior to encountering the Rileys. And she could be choosy because this woman did such a fantastic job. She could pick and choose who she was willing to take into her home. So she interviewed Amanda and Corey, who came across to her as a very loving couple. She thought they had their act together. She agreed to watch their first baby that was born to Amanda. But
And am I right in assuming that we do not know the children's names?
we do, but I thought we would not use them.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Okay.
So it was not long after this that Amanda shared she'd been diagnosed with cancer. And of course, Mahasti felt terrible for this young couple, who also, by the way, happened to attend the same church she did.
Okay.
And so Mahasti shared that almost immediately, because of Amanda's health issues, their son, their baby, was often the last child picked up every day. And then they started asking Mahasty for other favors. One time, Corey called and asked if she could watch the baby because they needed her help. At the time that she received this call, she's out of town. She's in Sacramento. She drove home, changed her plans, drove home so she could babysit. Another time, Corey called around midnight saying he was home with the sleeping baby, and he asked Mahasty, could she pick Amanda up from the hospital? She got out of her bed, got in a car, went to the hospital,
Midnight.
picked Amanda up. In 2015, when we had that little 30th birthday celebration where the four Chili's restaurants, did their fundraiser, Mahasty was invited to celebrate with Amanda and Corey at Chili's that night. They invited apparently a group of people to actually celebrate her birthday at one of the Chili's locations.
Oh, okay.
So Corey's boss and wife were also invited, but apparently did not realize that they were supposed to pay for their meal. And Mahasty shared this in Scamanda that they left and they had not paid for their meal.
The boss left?
The boss and his wife.
Okay.
And Mahasty said that Amanda and Corey were having just this little stress session where they were making a big to-do. You know, they didn't have money to pay for this meal. What were they going to do? They couldn't cover the meals. And so Mahasty actually ended up paying for the meals eaten by Corey's boss and his wife to help this couple out. This is the type of
kind heart that she had.
Yes, and the way that Amanda, and I'm going to say this is Candy, because we'll come back to Corey later, but I'm saying in that situation, I believe Corey was involved as well in manipulating. I mean, these examples that we've shared, seems to me Corey was taking some advantage when he's calling Mahasty up to ask her to do these things for their family.
Yes.
So Mahasty was one definitely impacted by this couple in lots of other ways as well, but there are a few examples. Jessa. I want to talk briefly about Jessa. She is, again, Amanda's stepdaughter. Jessa remembered how she first heard Amanda was sick. She said they were in the car, song was playing on the radio, and suddenly Amanda started crying. Jessa asked what was wrong, and Amanda told her about her diagnosis, saying there would be a rough road ahead. And then she talked about, I'm thinking about this as a child because, again, there are two other children in this home as well that we're not really focusing on.
Yes.
But this child perspective, right? She recalled how upsetting it was to see Amanda in bed all the time, talking about the pain she was in, not being able to do things. These young boys were also seeing a mother who was very, very sick, who I'm sure probably they knew she was ill to the point of her life was in danger. At some point, they had to have realized that. Jessa certainly did. Yeah. Jessa certainly did. And especially after seeing her sister Jamie's battle with cancer, Jessa was very concerned about the fact that Amanda had cancer.
This was her whole childhood.
Yes. Yes. And as time went on, Jessa said she was under a lot of pressure from Amanda and Corey in terms of her responsibilities at home.
There you go, the babysitter.
She was not only expected to do well at school, she was expected to do well at sports, but she had a lot of responsibility placed on her at home. Because Amanda was sick in bed so much, Jessa not only was the babysitter, she would have to make them some food. She would have to clean their room for them.
Yeah.
At which point, by the way, one time when she was cleaning their room, she found an IV wrapped in saran wrap. And when she took, I'm a little side note here really quickly, but when she took it to Amanda, Jessa said that Amanda grabbed it from her and said one of the boys had gotten it out of her drawers.
What do you think really happened there? Do you think she was hiding it in her son's bedroom? Or do you think one of the boys really had grabbed it and it ended up there?
I suspect she was using it in that room and tucked it away when somebody walked in or, because she did want to have different settings.
For one of her pictures,
for
maybe?
her photos, maybe.
Okay.
Yep. Jamie said the first time she ever got really angry about this whole situation was when her sister Jessa said how upset she was after hearing that she and or her little brothers might have to give bone marrow at some point to save Amanda's life.
Amanda told them, you might have to give me bone marrow to save my life.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Knowing you were not really sick, looking at your stepdaughter and your two biological sons, your children, and saying, to save my life, you may need to donate bone marrow, knowing you're not sick.
And you know what? I am not sure to what lengths she might have pursued that.
She may have made them do it.
Whether she could get somebody to do a bone marrow transplant, no, of course not. But could she have
forced them
to do other things? I mean, I think she would have put her children in harm's way to continue her scam. So lots of ways Jessa was impacted. By the way, at some point, Jessa asked to go back with her mom. Her mom did get full custody back. It was after something had happened. Jessa got very angry. She she did not like the way she was being treated. I think she started to suspect things herself.
She's putting the pieces together.
Yeah, she had been isolated from her mom. She started to realize things were not the way she wanted them to be. And she did go back with her mom. And then her mom finally did have to tell her what was going on. And then she had to play this game, when she was around the Rileys. So terrible, terrible situation for this child, who, by the way, decided she couldn't go through it again. She spoke in the podcast, but Jessa could not go through it again. She did not speak in the docuseries simply because she could not relive it again.
Poor baby.
Last person, you'll be happy about this one. We're going to talk briefly about Alita. Yeah, you are right. I mean, you said it in part 1.
They destroyed her.
She suffered incredibly because of Corey and Amanda. She said that in trying to win full custody of Jessa, they also tried to destroy her reputation in the process.
And they succeeded.
They absolutely did. This is now coming from her. She said they portrayed her as being unstable, having an issue with drugs, being a terrible abusive mother. They claimed Alita was trying to poison Jessa against them. I mean, the accusations were just flying. And she would do it not just to people, in her personal little circle, but Amanda would write some of this stuff, maybe
in her blog.
Right, not naming her. She probably didn't say Alita,
but everybody knows who the
everybody
ex-wife
knew who
is.
it was, right?
Yes.
She would detail some of this stuff in this blog that was read by, I think, thousands of people. It was just terrible. Alita shared that despite how they treated her, and I think this is pretty impressive, because of what she and Corey had gone through when Jamie had her huge cancer battle, Alita was actually sympathetic to Amanda when she first heard about her cancer diagnosis. In fact, she said she messaged her lawyer to share the sad news and even contacted Amanda to try to smooth things over and say, you know what, let's try to just co-parent. Let's just share Jessa. Let's stop all this. And of course, the Rileys would have none of that. Yes. At one point, when Alita still had Jessa, there was a time when Amanda and Corey claimed bankruptcy. It was around, I think, that same time that they tried to have Corey's child support payments to Alita reduced due to financial hardship. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but when Corey and Amanda won full custody of Jessa when she was 11, Alita had to pay child support to them.
Yeah, I did.
So
yeah, she's paying the child support, which I think is another reason they wanted that child support.
The lawyer fully believes that part of the child support battle was about money.
Yeah.
That is what the lawyer said.
I think it's a baby. That's a good point I didn't bring up before. I think it's a babysitter. I think it's good for optics, and I think they wanted that money.
Yeah. But it sounded as though the thing that hurt Alita the most was how they tried to isolate Jessa from her and cut her out of Jessa's life. And there was a time when, again...
It worked.
Yeah, it absolutely worked. Jessa wanted nothing to do with her for a time. They would go to school. They would give Amanda and Corey's contact information, and they would leave Alita out of it. It was just one thing after another.
Yeah, Amanda sent her a text message that said something like, legally, I'm her mother. You're just her birth mother.
Yes.
What?
And then it said, Corey asked me to relay this to you.
Sure. Okay.
Right. Well, this is so short. It's only just a sentence or two, but I wanted you to hear Alita's voice sharing just a brief soundbite about what this meant to her.
Yeah.
She ripped apart my family, and then they took my reputation and squashed it.
Short and to the point.
Yeah.
But I think it says it all.
It does. And I just don't think that we can overemphasize how destructive Amanda was. Mm-hmm. You look at her and she's got the smiling. And also, I cannot emphasize enough how sweet she looks.
Yes.
How sweet and bubbly and kind.
Warm.
And she is, I'm sorry, this is my opinion. I think she's a snake. Mm-hmm. I think she is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is jumping ahead. I don't think she's going to change. I don't think she wants to change. Mm-hmm. I think this is who she is. And I think she enjoyed destroying her life.
Yeah. And felt opinion. Justified in doing it. I don't think she thought twice about it.
Yeah. I think she'd do it again.
Well, that was just a little bit of background. With CharlieWebster saying how important it was to make sure that the victims' voices and perspective was shared, I thought, okay, I want to take a little time to make sure that we don't miss that either.
I agree.
But back into the timeline. When we left off, Lisa Berry She's
figured it out.
Yes.
She's figured it out, and she's brought Nancy on board.
Absolutely. So Nancy started her investigation in 2015 after hearing from Lisa. She started with Amanda's blog because, honestly, this was something that people said time and time again was, in some ways, Amanda dug her own grave.
She really did.
She put so much detail, so many
much
facts.
Checkable detail.
Exactly. So many facts that could be checked. So she started there. Now, at the point that Nancy came in, Amanda had been blogging for 3 years. She's had a lot to work with.
Deep into this cancer battle.
Yeah, she got busy fact-checking. But after she'd investigated enough to feel confident, Amanda truly was lying about her cancer, because she said that. She needed the truth. What kind of a terrible person would she be to go after this woman if she legitimately had cancer? She would be the worst person on the planet. She's how she felt. So she needed to be 100% confident. It took her a while, but then she got to that point and she realized it could be very helpful if she was able to talk to some individuals who had the inside track on Amanda and her activities. Now, I should say, during this time, she has remained in contact with Lisa. If something came up, a blog post came out or something came up, they would contact each other and have conversations. But Lisa is not in Amanda's life.
Okay.
You know, she's on the periphery. She's watching things like Nancy
unfold.
is. Right.
Yeah.
So Nancy decided, I've heard about this ex-wife, Alita. I think I'm going to try her. Now, she was nervous about tipping her hand, so she kind of sent this little vague communication.
Through Etsy.
Isn't that funny? And Alita responded. But again, I give Alita props because she did say, I'm sorry I can't help you because they lie about everything. They just lie. That's a direct quote.
Yeah.
She went on to say, I have nothing nice to say about these people. But this was actually from Nancy. Nancy said, to Alita's credit, she also shared with her, Alita shared with Nancy, that the couple was dealing with Amanda's cancer battle and she didn't really want to add to their problems at such a difficult time. And that's when Nancy said, let me share with you
actually
what I'm investigating and what we think is true about Amanda. And now Alita is on board.
Alita's like, I'm jumping on this train.
She is like, let me help you. And she was very helpful. I mean, Nancy said Alita was incredibly helpful because she had access to some information that was a little bit of, kind of behind the scenes. She could help fact check some of these stories that Amanda was telling. So just one small example they shared was maybe Amanda said on this particular date, this particular time, she was doing a treatment or she was gone to a certain place, and Nancy might talk with Alita, who would say, oh, I was on the phone with Jessa that night and Amanda was in the background talking about blank and blank. Those types of things, all documented by Nancy. She is keeping the most detailed record.
She's going to need it.
Of everything she's finding, everything she's discovering. Now, Nancy also tried, after a time, she's being very careful, she tried to reach out to a few other people who came up frequently in Amanda's blog, but Nancy said she was generally met with an incredibly cold response.
Yes.
These people felt like she was vile. They were confident that
Amanda was really
sick and this terrible woman was coming after Amanda. And she was also confident that somebody, maybe all of them, told Amanda about the calls when they happened. Also, at some point, Alita had asked Nancy if she could bring up the investigation in court as part of an argument for custody, and she was allowed to do so. So between the phone calls, this court appearance type thing, Amanda had found out.
She knows that Nancy's coming for
her activities.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And once Amanda knew about Nancy's investigation, this woman is so smart. It fed right into Amanda's narrative.
Yeah.
She just started telling everybody, oh, that awful, vindictive, terrible Alita has hired Nancy in this ongoing campaign.
Her friend Nancy. They didn't know each other.
Right.
But she told everybody that they were friends.
Right. And she's saying that this Alita using Nancy to destroy their lives, their reputations, and try to get custody of Jessa. And everybody believed it. It was so believable. So believable.
Yeah.
So after Nancy had investigated more time, she's now got pages upon pages of notes and documentation. She'd fact-checked the first 3 years. At some point in here, she felt ready to take this to the next level. She contacted the San Jose Police Department, where she was put in contact with Detective Jose Martinez from the Financial Fraud Division.
Right. Because I guess this is a point that's important to note is it's not illegal to lie.
Right.
Not illegal to lie. What is illegal is fraud. Which money.
So she shared with him her work log that included everything she'd done so far, including the phone calls, and he decided he was going to pursue this, even though he had never had a case like this before.
Yeah.
We should also say he's the only person working in that unit, so it's not like he could dedicate all his time to this. But the good news is now there are 2 investigators working on Amanda's case. One challenge both of them brought up was how Amanda was protected by the HIPAA laws.
Right.
They could not get access to her medical records doctors, medical professionals, medical facilities could not answer questions related to Amanda's private health information. None of that is accessible to them. They had to figure out workarounds. These people were so smart.
I love the workarounds.
I
loved it.
It was so good. In trying to corroborate facts from Amanda's blog, they would have to find questions that could be answered. So, for example, I mean, these are just a few of the things that they shared. There were so many, but Nancy at one point asked the type of hospital gown used in different facilities to see if it matched what Amanda was showing in the pictures. Or Amanda talked about a Nerf gun fight that she had one time. So she's calling up oncology departments.
Did you ever have a Nerf gun fight?
Exactly, because that's a memorable thing, right?
And they're like, no, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And if certain places, now this was another trick they figured out. If Amanda had specifically, and she did, by the way, mention a certain facility, certain doctors by name. Sometimes they got a little further if they would send that facility or that person access, oh, you've been mentioned in the blog. Let me share with you how you came up in this blog.
Okay.
And then they still couldn't say, is it true or tell me about Amanda? But Nancy might say something like, on this particular date that's been named, did you actually start a trial on this particular medication?
And they could say yes or no to that.
And they could answer yes or no to that. Typically, no.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be, we haven't even done a trial on that drug anytime in the, in recent history. So all kinds of little tricks that they were using. Detective Martinez said he decided to nudge Amanda by going to her church.
Oh.
No luck.
Bad idea.
Yeah, they would not talk to him. They were very protective of Amanda. And in fact, at one point, the pastor sent his lawyer daughter to the meeting instead. But he also had a little bit of luck when he was trying to pinpoint things through specific facilities or doctors, that type of thing. Same type of example that we gave you before. Were you running a trial on this cancer medication at this particular time frame? Now, because he was openly asking about her, it didn't take Amanda long to find out about Detective Martinez. So one day she came into the police department and she dropped off a huge packet of printouts on cancer medications. The detective said that actually fueled his fire because he's looking at it and he's like, this printout means nothing.
It's self-populated.
Yeah, anybody could have created this.
Yes.
So he actually took this as encouragement, like, oh, she's trying to deceive me. I'm onto something. So he called to speak to her as a follow-up to this being dropped off, and he was told she had an attorney, which did not faze him at all. And in fact, the attorney did contact Detective Martinez to basically ask him to back off. Detective Martinez responded it was really very simple. If they could just produce some evidence that Amanda truly did have cancer, he'd stop.
I'm done.
I'm happy to stop.
Yeah. Wish you well. Get well soon.
Yeah. And not long after, that attorney submitted a brief note from a doctor saying that his patient, Amanda C. Riley, was in remission. The detective contacted the hospital to ask if that doctor actually made the statement. And here is Jose Martinez sharing what happened.
They were super protective, but he said there was a letter sent to her, but it wasn't for that. Now I have a fraudulent doctor's letter. And I thought, wow, we got ourselves a case.
He said that so cool.
He did.
We got ourselves a case.
It was
Jose.
It was so cool that I thought that's a perfect place to take a break.
Oh, okay. We love including listener voices in our episodes, and we're always looking for more. So tell us, where do you sip your scandal water? Do you catch up on the tea while folding your laundry, sitting at your work desk, working out at the gym? Let us know by sending in your shout out, telling us your first name, your hometown, and where you are or what you're doing when you're listening to Scandal Water. And you just might hear a voice you recognize starting one of our upcoming episodes. Email your audio clip to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com. The voice memo app on your phone will work just fine. Cheers.
And we are back. Jose left us in a good place.
Oh, Jose, yes. I imagine he took off his sunglasses and looked at us and said, we got ourselves a case.
More good stuff coming from Jose. After this, Jose asked to speak to the legal department of City of Hope, which was a place Amanda had referenced often in her blog. And it's where she said she was going to get a stem cell transplant. He told them that Amanda had cited their facility as one of her stops with a particular doctor and a particular medication being named. He said, it's not HIPAA because if she's not a patient, there is no confidentiality.
That's true.
He didn't know if they would bite. He didn't know if they would go with that.
Yeah.
He said it took a week. week. And then they responded saying she was not and had never been a patient. He called that his first big break.
Yeah.
He said, he knew at that point, she's a fraudster. That's
Yeah.
it. It's been confirmed.
Yeah.
But his point is, that still didn't prove she didn't have cancer.
Right.
Yeah, he needed more, but he felt like his options were limited. So it was around this time that Nancy had a conversation with her father-in-law, who was a retired IRS agent. And he suggested...
Get her like Al Capone.
Exactly.
Get her
That is
like Al
exactly
Capone.
what they said.
Yeah.
He suggested she contact the IRS because this was a clear case of wire fraud. That's what Nancy did. And Jose, Detective Martinez, he agreed with this because if the case went to the federal level, it would be a whole new ball game. By the way, I don't know if I've said this. Federal level means access to medical records.
Oh, it does.
The rules are different for them. The rules
okay,
are
okay,
different.
okay.
Yes. So he met with an IRS agent named Arlette Lee.
Which is hard because we have Alita and Arlette
Let's call
Lee.
her Agent Lee. We'll
Okay.
just call her Agent Lee. They had Nancy's information. They had everything he collected. They presented their evidence. They actually, I think, had to take it, if I remember correctly, to an attorney general to get a permission to pursue this. But ultimately, they were given permission. This was it was very different from anything they'd done before. Not nearly as much money involved. But it was kind of, they didn't use this term, but basically it was like a moral thing. They said
Yeah.
they felt like they needed to pursue this. Again, just to clarify, wire fraud is using the wires to get money under false pretenses. And because it was a federal crime, or they're looking at it as a federal crime, Agent Lee had the ability to subpoena Amanda's medical records.
Let's define the wires, because that can kind of be confusing. You think, what, a telephone wire? It can be Venmo. It can be the checking account. It can be anything delivered over the internet. That is what wires are.
And in this case, because they had set up the site where everybody was donating money through the website, that one website,
That's considered a wire.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, what's not considered a wire is all the cash and gift cards.
100%.
So just keep that in mind.
100%. So again, Amanda's blog is incredibly helpful because it allowed Agent Lee to check specific facts and details for herself, but this was a very slow and tedious process. So meanwhile, despite her awareness of Nancy and Detective Martinez's investigations, Amanda has continued to blog. She's sometimes
doubled down.
speaking at church.
Yeah.
She's just continuing to spin the lies. And in 2016, the IRS finally had enough evidence to get a search warrant for Amanda's house. Nancy got a tip that it was going to happen, so she was there early with one of her colleagues from the Crime Watch program, and they were going to catch everything on camera. But Nancy also described it as being, just like you see in the movies, approximately 10 or 11 armed IRS agents moving in like a SWAT team, approaching the house from the front and the back. They even had a battering ram with them.
Dang.
Detective Martinez got to be present in the raid. He had the chance to interact with Amanda while her house was being searched. And he said he found it a little disconcerting to discover she knew who he was.
Yeah.
But he also noted how very chill
She was super chill.
He said he suspected she'd been taking
She'd been-
quite a few of those
she'd been helped.
antidepressants
Yeah, she'd been
that
helped
were in
along.
her room. Yeah. But I found it kind of interesting that the way he described it, she was perfectly friendly to him.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it didn't seem to have bitterness against him. Very cordial with him. But Amanda and Nancy,
They are not. They are super villains. This is like Batman and the Joker.
I mean, oh my gosh, Amanda, so bitter, so angry against Nancy, which is evidenced by the charges that she and Corey brought against Nancy in 2017. They accused her of civil harassment and basically tried to place a restraining order against Nancy that would prohibit her from contacting Amanda's friends and family. The documents accused Nancy of getting both Amanda and Corey fired from their respective jobs and posing as a federal agent, among other things. Nancy said basically the document was full of lies, but she actually was very concerned about this because as a journalist, if she were to lose, she could have lost her job.
Yeah.
Her career would, and her credibility. She took this very seriously.
I haven't listened to the podcast in recent times as much as you have, but I remember, again, this is paraphrased, I believe that the judge said to Nancy, like, she almost won this case.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy had all this evidence proving that it was wrong, but there was some kind of legal loophole that Amanda knew about or took advantage of or something. And the judge was like, if you didn't have this one little piece, Amanda would have won this case.
Well, what it was she was protected under freedom of the press. And had it not been for that technicality, if you will, or that one provision,
But it wasn't
Yeah.
true. My point is,
Oh, I know.
Amanda came and said she got me fired. She got all this and this and this. None of that was true, but
And
yet
yet-
she could have won that case.
Right. Yeah. Well, what happened, just to kind of give you a little bit of context, it ran very much like a trial. Corey, Amanda, Nancy, several witnesses all testified, and the final verdict was that there was no grounds for a restraining order. But again, the judge said it was really this freedom of press is what protected her. Amanda's team immediately talked about appealing, and the judge informed them that, okay, of course you can do that, but an appeal would open the door for Nancy's team to have access to all of Amanda's medical records. So that's what stopped that.
I see.
Okay. And here's the thing. Nancy won, but she spent about $200,000 defending herself in that.
$200,000, and it wasn't true, and she
Right.
almost lost.
Exactly.
This is how powerful
And it
this
could have
woman
taken
is.
her career.
Yes.
And Amanda would have been thrilled
Yes.
to have taken her down.
Yeah.
Everything she had.
So I
Woo!
do not apologize for finding the same amount of glee that Nancy finds in Amanda's fall. Because
how could you not have been rooting for this woman to finally be stopped?
Yeah.
It was awful what she did. Awful. Well, Amanda stopped going to church after the battle with Nancy ended, but that's the thing. But she didn't stop, right?
Yeah.
She didn't stop. There are so many things that she continued to do. In fact, she continued to act even after the Department of Justice sent emails to everyone who had donated
potential
to
victims.
Amanda through the site, telling them that they had been victims of wire fraud. It was called a victim's notification, and it caused a frenzy. But they share this in Scamanda. The immediate reaction from almost everybody was disbelief.
Yeah. Because they know the Amanda that you presented early on, the sweet, kind, Christian, devout, wonderful, like on the verge of death girl.
And they had been supporting her
For years.
For years. And they'd seen her in the hospital, and they'd seen her taken away with an ambulance. And
Yeah, you'd seen those things.
yeah. Several spoke on the podcast about being absolutely enraged on her behalf. And they talked about all the things that had convinced them that this was real, the things we just named, the detailed accounts of medicines, the pictures of medicines.
But you never quite could see the labels.
Right. They said that was just all so elaborate. They could not believe anyone could invest that much effort and authenticity into a lie. Charlie herself commented, quote, "The depth and complexity Amanda went to is quite astonishing."
Yeah.
So Lindsay was one of the friends who contacted Amanda to tell her about this notice she had received.
And as a
Amanda-
reminder, Lindsay is the atheist who prayed for the first time when Amanda was sick.
Yes.
Just as a reminder to you
Yes.
guys from part 1.
Yes. And Amanda had a couple of different responses, which were, again, very believable. She was a smart woman. I will give her that. I guess I should use present
Conniving.
tense. Is conniving. Yes.
She's a conniving woman. She's not very smart. She's conniving.
So one of her responses was that she immediately blamed Alita again, telling Lindsay, "You know I have cancer. This is just Alita trying another strategy to ruin my life, right?" But then she came up with an even better excuse.
I think this one's better.
Oh, it's very believable. Very believable. She shared that she was in trouble for tax evasion because she hadn't known that you were supposed to pay taxes on donations. It was just this innocent mistake.
Yep.
She was contacting her lawyer. She was going to get it cleared up immediately. It was just this simple, innocent thing. And
People bought it.
Very believable. The IRS is coming after her. Why wouldn't it be about
Taxes.
Yes. Rebecca, the one who donated $500 a month, was another supporter who followed up on the notice, and she got the same story about the taxes, and she said that she was even more convinced because Peggy, Amanda's mother, backed it up. Peggy said, "Yes, this is all about the unpaid taxes." So she's 100% believing this.
Isn't Rebecca also the one that Amanda FaceTimed with? She said, "Look, I'm getting treatment right now. FaceTime me. I will show you that I am getting treatment."
Absolutely. Yep. She offered to let her FaceTime. She did it. Rebecca said, "Can I take a screenshot?" She said, "Yes, you can." Rebecca looked at one of the nurses who was there, found her on LinkedIn. She really existed. She was really that nurse. She said it all checked out.
Yep.
She's 100% believing Amanda again.
Yep.
And life is continuing on for the Rileys. In fact, something exciting happened for Amanda. I don't know that we've talked about this in a bit, but remember, she couldn't work. She was too sick to work full time.
Yeah.
She tried off and on to do part time, and then she had problems with attendance. In the 2017-2018 school year, she actually held a position as an English teacher. I think it was in a Christian school, but she left that job in 2017. She didn't make it through the end of the year. And she alleged, this is the one I think that she said Nancy had gotten her fired from, but it later emerged that the school had finally had to let her go because she was gone all the time. She was missing so much, they couldn't just keep paying her when she wasn't doing her job.
You got to go to your job.
Yeah, right.
You can't just have a job and not go.
So the following school year, although Amanda had no resume that supported this, no background I just can't imagine why you would want to hire somebody she did not have a background in education or in administration.
Yeah, you've got a background in education. Can you imagine somebody walking in and going, let me be your principal?
No, no. But at this point, she's now living about 40 minutes away, the Rileys are, and she gets hired as the elementary principal at a Christian school. And this is the thing. Some people talk on the Scamanda series about how she was doing a fabulous job.
Yeah, they loved her.
One mother spoke about meeting Amanda when she was bringing her son James into the school as a new student. Their other son had a terminal illness himself. And so these parents were so impressed with Amanda's heart and how she was understanding about the fact that they were going to be pulling both of their sons out of school for the one son's treatments.
Right.
She even prayed with them and shared that she herself was in remission after suffering with cancer for years. I mean, these parents thought Amanda was absolutely amazing. They thought she was kind and beautiful and well-spoken. They were very impressed with her, and they continued to be even as she went through some testing with their son who needed a little extra support with his reading. But when a fundraiser was held for another teacher in that building who was dying of cancer, suddenly Amanda's cancer was
returned.
Back. This particular mother that I've just been talking about learned about Amanda's relapse when a fundraiser was held in support of both Amanda and this teacher, Miss Cindy. And the parent said that she could remember the impression it made on her as a parent when Amanda would occasionally come in early in pajamas to make sure she got some work done before going to her treatments. They were all just so sympathetic to this poor young woman who was doing everything she could. In fact, this mother said, of course we all donated. We all wanted to help both of them. And the school actually would send emails through the school
updating
system,
people,
right, to solicit donations. And the school they set up a website for donations themselves. Now remember, It's going to both of these people. But a teacher who spoke in one of the podcast's bonus episodes showed a very different perspective. However, she said Amanda was terrible to the teachers, treating them rudely, never allowing them to miss without giving at least 2 weeks notice, despite the fact that she herself was hardly ever there. And this teacher literally said Amanda created a toxic environment. But she also had an opinion about how Amanda handled this situation with Miss Cindy. Her perspective was, this is one person's perspective, she said that she felt Amanda almost seemed to compete whenever she noticed that attention was being paid to Miss Cindy, who again was actually dying from cancer.
Yes.
She passed away. Yes. So this woman who was talking pointed out that not only was Amanda faking cancer to take money away from this beloved, hardworking teacher, Miss Cindy, but because Amanda had a husband and children and Miss Cindy did not,
she got more money.
They gave her more of the donations that were given. It was just horrific. Yeah. So as time went on, Amanda continued to miss more, and finally the staff and the parents were told that Amanda had resigned due to her health issues. We're not sure. Was she let go? I don't know. But
she's gone.
Regardless, the teacher who spoke in the bonus episode was a little, I think, upset. She said that to this day, she thinks the admin continues to defend Amanda a little bit, saying things like, nobody knows the full story.
Oh my gosh.
Let's not jump to conclusions.
Yes, we do. We do know the full story.
Well, now we're down to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
Here's how it all unraveled. In July of 2020, after a 5-year investigation,
5 years.
5 years. Amanda C. Riley was indicted for wire fraud, and she decided to plead guilty, which did not happen until October of 2021. By the way, Lindsay, you've already identified her, the church member who was started as an atheist. She said it was only when Amanda pleaded guilty that she truly believed she had faked her cancer. Up to that moment, she still held,
and Rebecca
true to her belief.
I think Rebecca was the same.
So even after pleading guilty, Amanda did not immediately go to jail. She was at that time now in Austin, Texas, and reportedly would still sometimes go to the hospital claiming to be sick. So what they got her for, they had traced around $105,000 that she had been given through her site. As you said before, the cash donations were not part of it because it didn't go through the site.
Right.
Gift cards didn't count. Services didn't count. Babysitting, anything that she was given.
Airplane miles.
None of that. none of that counted. So it is no telling how much she actually took in for her and her family. Over 350 victims were named, although obviously there were many more. In fact, Mahasti, when this all went down, she wasn't one of the ones who got the notice, and she contacted them and said, I'm a victim too.
Good.
Yeah. May 5th, 2022 is when Amanda's sentencing hearing was held. Many victims, including Nancy, submitted written statements, impact statements. 4 people actually spoke: Alita, Lindsay, Lisa Berry, and Jessa. And they told how all of this had affected them. The recommended sentence for Amanda's crime was 18 months, but the judge made a statement by sentencing her to 60 months in prison.
Yeah.
So went above the recommendation by far.
Because he said, I don't think you're going to stop.
Yep. She was also told she was going to have to pay restitution plus interest. And by the way, I'll say it again, this was the only case of its kind in IRS history. So in some ways, this
it's a
was
precedent.
definitely blazing a trail. Now, an interesting side note is what occurred at the end of the sentencing. As CharlieWebster was leaving the courthouse, she introduced herself to Amanda and gave Amanda her business card saying she wanted to tell Amanda's story. She said, I'm not here to judge. I just want to tell what happened. Amanda responded about an hour later saying she appreciated the respectful way Charlie had approached her, and they stayed in contact until Charlie released her podcast, although she suspects that Amanda was surprised and unhappy with the way it came out.
Probably.
Yeah. And she made a point of saying, by the way, Amanda is making absolutely no profit from any of the Scamanda stuff.
Right.
On September 3rd, 2022, Amanda turned herself into federal prison. And in one of the bonus episodes that came out after the podcast release, Charlie shared that Amanda has been released from prison, but is still serving her sentence in something like a halfway house. So technically, she is still incarcerated. She is forced to go through counseling and rehabilitation. And the end of 2025 is her new projected release date.
So just a couple months from when this comes out.
Oh, yeah. Well, that puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Corey filed for divorce in January of 2024. As far as I can tell, it is still in process.
This interests me.
At that time, he was living with the boys in Texas. I don't know where he is now. I haven't found any updates on him. But let's pause for a second and talk about the hot topic of Corey's level of blame, because this is what comes up
a lot.
Time and time again.
A lot.
Nancy said this is pretty much the question she is asked most often. What about Corey?
Did he know?
Yeah.
What interests me about him divorcing her is when you're married, you can't be compelled to testify against your spouse. So if they're divorced and he knew, she can come out and say now they're not married. She can come out and blame him.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's the first thing I thought about. It's like, if he knew, not that I'm saying that he didn't, but let's pretend he did not know. Let's say that he's a victim too. The fact that he's divorcing her kind of
frees her up
to either lie about it, or if he did know, to now say, I'm going to testify against you and say it was all your idea. So that kind of plays into the favor of he did not know, but he could also be doing it to make himself look better. It's just
to
interesting.
get away from it.
Yeah, it's just interesting that he is divorcing her.
Well, just a couple of notes about this. Mahasti, Jamie, some of the other victims all have said they think he had to know. Detective Martinez and Charlie both have openly said they believe Corey had to know. The point is, how do you prove it?
Right.
You've already said you can't.
Nope.
Lying is not illegal. You can't charge somebody with that.
Right.
So they've had to think about, what could we hold against him? He did say under oath that he went to all of Amanda's appointments. And when they filed bankruptcy, there was a medical bill, at least one, that had clearly been doctored. So there are some little pieces of things floating out there. But when it all comes down to it, the only way they got Amanda was by wire fraud and using the site. And that site, all of those donations went to Amanda. Corey's name was not on those. So it really comes down to, do we have enough evidence to take him down?
To my thinking, and this is just me wildly speculating, I think the con got started by her. Because of the way he reacted at Steve's birthday party. He seemed genuinely bereft that his wife was dying. And they said when they first got married, he treated her like this sculpture, this beautiful, precious thing. So I think at first he was also conned. As it progressed, I think he figured it out, and then it could have been that thing. And please, I am not defending this man at all. I'm just saying my thinking how this played out. He could have realized he's too far into it now, and we're going to go with this. But I tend to think that he also was conned. Now, how soon he figured it out and went along with it, that's all on him, because he went along with this.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. It might have been the detective. Someone said in the Hulu docuseries that they also believed at some point he probably did not know, and then at some point he probably did know.
Yeah, it was Martinez.
My thinking is similar. I believe he probably was conned for at least a time. I just have to say, I know I'm sounding judgy, but at some point, he leaned into this.
Yes.
When you're calling Mahasti
yes.
and you're saying, please go pick up my wife at the hospital because my baby's at home with me.
Yeah.
When you're asking for the favors, when you're going after your ex-wife and accusing someone. I feel like
I'm not on
he's
his
complicit.
side. I'm not on his side at all.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I think that he was taken in.
At least for a time.
At least for a time.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. On a related note, while Amanda has maintained that her family was not involved in the scam, many people also think that Amanda's mother, Peggy, had to have been in on it. We didn't mention this earlier, but Peggy actually posted on Amanda's blog a number of times, either giving updates or sometimes calling for donations because of some setback or some medical need she had. A few people at different times in Scamanda would say, I wondered why, if she's so deathly ill, why were her parents not around? And they would even ask her. And at one point it was like, oh, they're in Europe or they're buying a vacation home. And they would say, why are your parents not helping? And it would be things are complicated or whatever. But the point is, it was also brought out that Peggy herself did receive a victim notification from the Justice Department.
Yeah, but guess how much she donated?
Tell them.
$10.
$10 was all she had ever donated. That's a little interesting from a mother who thinks that her daughter is dying.
Yes.
Yeah. Rebecca was one who spoke to this. I think because she started with Peggy, because Peggy had supported her through the loss of her
beloved.
Yeah, her significant other. I think the betrayal ran a little deeper with her. She is convinced Peggy was in on it, and she believes she should be held accountable. But it comes down again to what we said a minute ago. What can you prove? And you can't. You can't prove anything.
Other than to tell these stories. And the tie to public opinion. They're guilty in the tie to public opinion.
Now, what was said in a bonus episode, I believe, is that Peggy is reportedly supporting Amanda while she is imprisoned. And Charlie said she tried to investigate. Like, she wanted to know, is there something that happened in Amanda's childhood? No skeletons in the closet.
Nope.
She could not find anything bad when she was investigating that. So one last thing that I'll bring out before we switch to a different little related topic. Although she said she has to be and wants to be careful not to sound like she's making a diagnosis herself, because she is certainly not qualified to do that. Charlie wonders if Amanda has Munchausen. She said she personally is convinced that Amanda is motivated by the need to feel important and wanted rather than by money.
And Nancy thinks it's money, and I think it's both.
You think it's both?
I
Yeah.
do.
I do too. But I thought it was interesting when Munchausen was named. I was like, whoa, oh my goodness, where did that come from?
Yeah. So before I know you've got you're going to close this down, but something else that you guys might be interested in is I've seen a few YouTube videos out there where people are talking about what is happening to Amanda now, and the judge saying, I don't think you're going to change. And you would think, well, she's gone to prison. Is this really woken her up? No, it is not. She has, I think in her first 18 months of incarceration, she went to the hospital 24 times complaining about different ailments. They have caught her holding her breath when they were trying to test her. They've caught her fiddling with I'm going to call it the taps, the little IV stuff. She's fiddled with that stuff. She's tried to influence the test results. She wanted to get put into a less harsh area. She wanted to be put in the medical ward. And at some point, I think they're just like, get out of here. We can't deal with you anymore, because every time, whatever video I saw, they said every time you say that you're sick, they have to send you to the hospital, because they don't want it to be where you actually are sick and you fall ill on them, and then it's their fault that something happened to you.
They're held accountable.
They're held accountable. They got to send you. So knowing
she knows
that,
how to manipulate the system.
she's still doing it, guys. She is still doing it.
Which doesn't surprise
She's
me.
not trying to
Does
get
it surprise
money.
you?
No. So that goes with the attention. She still wants that attention and she's never said, I didn't really have cancer. She just said she was guilty of the wire fraud, but she never said, I never had cancer. She's never uttered those words to my knowledge. So she's still saying, I'm sick. I'm still sick. I've got heart problems. I've got lung problems. You just don't understand.
And here's the interesting question. How much damage has she done to herself over the years through the course of trying to prove she's sick?
Who knows? That's why I have no
Unbelievable.
time for her. If she had gone to prison and had a change of heart and said, I was so wrong. I am so sorry. I am changing my behavior. But she hasn't.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to quickly address the question that comes up all the time. How did Amanda fake it?
Yeah.
And we have touched on this already. You mentioned when she would hold up, which she did quite often in pictures, she would hold up the medicine, but go ahead
You
and
never
share.
saw the label.
Yeah, she would turn it. Either her thumb would be over it or she would turn it. Nancy said she actually started looking at lot numbers or some of the information that she could see on a label. And one time it was saline. Another time she found out it was a medicine, but it was not at all related to the medicine that Amanda was claiming.
Yeah, and you can go to the hospital for any reason. You could say, I have dehydration. I need to go to the emergency room. And they leave you alone in the room. Take your pictures.
Absolutely. That was another big strategy. When there was a point, I don't think we talked about this, where she said her port was infected. And it was in 2015, there was a blog that said she had finally gotten a port put in and then it was infected. It had to be taken out. And there were pictures where she would show it being taped to her skin and you could see this brown, this bruising and red all around it. And they pointed out, if you just take everything on the surface level, which most people are, they're trusting people who
they're
are
kind.
sympathetic,
Yes.
kind, loving, compassionate people. But if you took it on surface level and you didn't pay attention, you wouldn't notice that if you actually examine the pictures across different photos, the scar moves. Or if you look closely, it's angled differently in one photo from a
And
different
I would say,
one.
does she have a
Yes.
scar now? Probably not.
Probably not, yes. A lot of things could be bought from medical supply stores. The tubing that she found or that Jessa found in her brother's room, probably something that she purchased or took out of an ER room if she
Right.
was left alone. Who
Right.
knows? There was a picture of Amanda with a big needle. A nurse oncologist told, I think it was Nancy, that what was shown was more the syringe plunger part rather than the actual needle. She knew how to fake things. This is diabolical. I had not thought of this before. Remember how involved Amanda would get with fundraisers, organizations for cancer support?
Yeah.
She would go to cancer support groups. They actually think she was probably connecting with cancer survivors or
To
cancer
mine them
victims.
from information.
Yes, going to these support groups so that she could take their stories, take their medicines, take their details,
Take
and
their lives.
sound more believable then.
She's like a supervillain.
She would also visit other facilities, oncology departments, or different hospitals just randomly, take a lot of photos and then recycle them, use them later, just pull them out at different times.
Yeah.
And this is a little, I don't know, this is a little different. I hadn't thought about this, but they talked about the emotional exploitation because so many people had a loved one they'd lost or they'd supported through this. Emotions were so high. And there's also emotional exploitation or believability in repetition and public performance.
Yes.
So knowing what does resonate with people, what does manipulate people, what
Yes.
does convince people,
Yes.
she would purposefully
Do it.
do those things.
Yes.
And it works. It works. So I'm going to end on a positive note.
Please do.
One positive that came out of this, something we mentioned earlier, CharlieWebster said in the bonus episode, quote, "This case is the first and only federal case of its kind." We've already said that before, but then she went on to point out that there are other cases going on now.
Good.
Now, because of going through all of this with Amanda C. Riley, they're pursuing some
Good.
of these other cases.
Take them down.
And they have a roadmap now
Of how to do it.
Yes, that other investigators and other prosecutors are using.
It's a precedent.
Yes, they're taking some of these strategies, and now some of these other scamsters,
Take
some of these
them
other
down.
people, diabolical people, are going to be stopped because of this case.
Good.
Armchair psychologist.
Well, that brings us to the armchair, Ashley.
All right.
So we started by talking about the victims, the fact that sometimes when you have fallen for a scam, you can blame yourself. There can be
Right.
shame.
Yeah.
There can be embarrassment. That was what Rebecca said she had. And then, Charlie bringing out, no, it's on the scammer. You were the one who did nothing wrong. It's on the scammer. So now that we've gone through all of this, we've finished the entire Amanda's story to this point. What are your thoughts about the victims of Amanda's crime and how Amanda could do something like this to people that were her closest friends, her biggest supporters?
Well, it's two different things. I think the way that she was able to do this to her closest friends is she did not really care about her closest friends. I think what she cared about was herself.
Yeah.
And that's my personal opinion. I don't think she cared a hoot and a holler about anybody else other than advancing and getting attention and getting money. Because you notice that when Lisa said the person who had cancer got $100,000, then she said she had cancer. So I think Nancy and Charlie are right. I think she wanted the money, and I think she wanted the attention. Now, for the victims, I think that it's very important that this story comes out in full, in the truth, to vindicate these people, especially the ones that were pointing it out, like Lisa, like Alita, like Nancy, whose lives were destroyed by this woman, and people believed Amanda. And believed that these other people were bad. And Rebecca, in one of the interviews, she talked about how she kind of hesitated to take part in the docuseries and in the podcast because it was such a hard time for her. But what she found is how healing it was to get her story out there and to have people contact her and either to not sympathize in a bad way, but just to empathize with her and maybe even to share about how something had happened to them, how they had been scammed. And there was a lot of healing that took place. So that's what I want for Mahasti and Jessa. And I still include Nancy because of the law, the court case.
Oh, absolutely.
And Alita's reputation. Can you imagine we can't imagine the damage, but now that hopefully it's been restored a little bit. I hope it's reset the balance to where people know that Alita was not this terrible person. It stole a lot of Alita's life. It stole a lot of her time with her child. It stole Jessa's childhood. There's so much bad that came from this one person.
Absolutely. Who looked like a little angel.
Oh, yeah.
Who looked like a little angel. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. In fact, I don't know if I have anything much to add to it. It's hard for me to fathom that you could be so heartless while pretending to be one of the most faith-filled, compassionate, sympathetic people around. She absolutely used everyone. Everyone, the people who treated her with the most love and kindness, and she did not seem to think twice, no shame at all. I agree with you. Also, I really applauded Rebecca for telling her story, and I loved what she said about the healing that came from it, and the fact that, I guess I'm going to bring back to the point I made in part one. In today's world, there's a lot of this going on. There are scams everywhere, and I think we are all vulnerable to it. And number one, we need to have better regulations and better strategies to find people who are doing it and stop them. But also, we're all vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
We all have been victimized. I love being able to take the lesson from this, that being victimized does not mean you did anything wrong. Victim is not a bad word.
Yeah.
You know, taking back your agency, taking back your power. I'm not this passive person.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who happened to get caught up in your evil doings.
Yes. And I think also we need to learn that Amanda may be the first of her kind, but she's not the only of her kind. So be careful out there, guys. Because these people walk amongst us.
Well, and since this month is called Scammy September, guess what?
We got another one coming.
You're gonna hear about a few more scams this month. But boy, was this an interesting one to start with.
It was.
Yeah. Who are we gonna cheers?
You know what? Let's now cheers Charlie and Nancy. Charlie and Nancy, who brought this to the public and shone a light on this dark deed.
Absolutely. Cheers to you, ladies.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown,
that's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reeve, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.